it's a hot day, I'm hanging in the sunshine. You should hit me with the splash gun so I cool down. Won't you come on over? We can party till the sun's down. Baby, let me buy you a drink while we're dancing a blink. I could go for some Queen Bee too. Macy's going boom boom. Baby, if you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide. Water slide. Surfing on a wave of good feelings. Well, it's just another Friday in paradise. So bring your A game, cause you know this party won't stop. We could never run out of time, sipping strawberry lime. You know I wanna share it with you. Macy's going boom boom. Baby, if you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide. Water slide. It's getting kinda crazy up in here. Got that DJ playing music everybody wants to hear, yeah. It's getting kinda crazy up in here. Everybody wants a ride in the water slide. 3, 4. Baby, if you're looking for some crazy, I'll tell you everybody's standing in a line for the water slide. You can come on over, we can take the roller coaster. And you know everybody's looking for a ride in the water slide. Water slide.
Yo!
What's up, everyone? Marco, good to see you, buddy. How are you?
Good to see you. Doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. How is everyone in the chat this morning? I'm so grateful everyone is here. It's just great to see everyone. Always love hanging out on a Saturday morning or Saturday afternoon for you, Marco.
Afternoon, yes.
Yes. And so I told Marco I'm going through Patrick withdrawals. He was on vacation this last week. He is traveling home today, which is why he's not here. So hopefully he will be here next weekend. We'll see. It's a mystery. I don't know.
We'll be here.
Yeah. All right, so let's start it off the right way. If you are new to Guy in a Cube or just the live stream in general, put hashtag new in the chat. We'd love to see all the new faces and just want to say hi. So definitely appreciate everyone attending. For those of you that maybe do not know who Marco is, Marco Russo is one of the partners at SQLBI.com and SQLBI itself. And let me throw that up there. They do a lot of great stuff in the realm of DAX and data modeling and just working with your data, massaging it, getting it to feel good, and is just the one of the godfathers of DAX itself. I would say they've also wrote a great book, Definitive Guide to DAX, as well as others, DAX Patterns, so DAXpatterns.com, all of that great stuff. So go check it out. If you don't have the Definitive Guide to DAX, definitely make sure you go get that. It is a must-have. I need to absorb it so much. I have 2 copies, so
2? I didn't know that.
Yeah, I've got 2.
Just in case. One for every floor.
Yeah.
Just in case.
Yeah. You know, okay. I need to. It's so heavy and so much info that I need 2 to really get it all. So I highly recommend doing that for everyone.
Thank you.
Anything else you'd like to say about that, Marco? Anything else?
Or...
Yeah. Anything else you guys are working on that's coming up?
That we can tell you not much.
but you have a live stream coming up to talk about the future.
Yes. Yeah. No. This is true. Next week on Wednesday, we have in the same chat we will have both Daniel and Daniel Otikier and Darren Gosper, who are the main authors of Tabular Editor in DAX Studio. And because they live, one in Denmark, one in Australia, because of the difference in time zone, it will be in the middle of the night for most of the United States. So you can watch it on your Wednesday morning. It will be already over, but it will be amazing to have both. And the idea about that is that we recently discussed about the development tools of tabular modeling. And I don't know if you have seen in both the Power BI blog and on SQLBI, we have a longer article explaining why you need multiple tools. You cannot just have one. And many of these tools are open source tools or commercial tools, but in any case, you have to use multiple tools. And there are consequences for that. We wanted to explain that because there are companies who say, oh, this is not supported, so it's not Microsoft, is not supported. Whereas the reality is that as long as you use the right API, it is supported. And so the goal of the article was to explain that. But we know that there are news coming for both DAX Studio and Tabular Editor. So I think that I hope that Daniel will be able to announce something. We are also working on something new for DAX Studio 3.0.
Nice.
But for DAX Studio 3.0, you will not see anything. Maybe for Daniel already shown some news about Tabular Editor in some streaming and some other place. But the goal of the meeting of the line meeting is just to talk about the history, what is today, what these tools are today, and what is the direction of these tools, because of course there will be an evolution.
Yes.
And so it will be the right place to discuss about that.
Awesome. Looking forward to it. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
All right. So let's kick off some of the hashtag news. So Anthony is new, and Anthony, thank you for becoming a member. Also, Drew Brannon, thank you for becoming a member. Much appreciated. Madara's new, Husama's new, Let's see. Aritra is new. We got Ujawal is new. And a couple others I saw in there. Javier is new from Spain. Good to see you here. Martin is new from Peru. I always love seeing folks from around the world. What else we got? All right. Excellent. And Chewy is vintage. Yes. All right. So the other thing, just a shout out to our members. So just a big thank you for being a member and supporting Guy in a Cube. It's very much appreciated. Helps us do what we do here on the channel. And just if you're not familiar, the folks that have kind of a green name or like the Guy in a Cube logo next to them, they are members of Guy in a Cube. And they are the ones that help support us. So if you're interested in knowing more, there's a join button down below. Or on the side if you're on the mobile, if you want to learn more. No commitments required, just thank you for checking it out. And so great to see everyone here. All right, questions. So please put a Q colon in front of the question. We get them queued up. Chatmaster C is standing by. Please do not spam the question. Spamming the question, we have a 3 strikes rule here on Guy in a Cube. You will get put into a timeout either by Chatmaster C or one of our awesome moderators. Those are the ones in the blue name colors with the little gear next to them. So they have the power to put you in a timeout. All right, with that, Marco, are you ready?
I hope so, yeah.
All right. And then just also real quick, so for the members, hold the questions. We'll be doing a members-only chat at the bottom of the hour, and we will cut over to member-only chat. Everyone will still be able to participate, but only members and moderators will be able to participate in the chat. Super chats always take priority. So, all right, with that, let's see here. So Matthias, let's see here. Matthias, you weren't here super early, so I was wondering if you were going to show up. So Matthias said, can you show how to build Patrick's measure video this week so that there is a grand total?
Patrick's measure. What is the Patrick's measure this week? I think it's because I have seen a video last week, not this week.
So let me grab it really quick.
Yep.
Got to pull up the file.
Check in the meantime.
Yeah, so what he did, this was where we were filtering by slicers, so like a disconnected table.
Okay.
And then in the measure, taking that into account. So I'm just pulling it up here. Whoa. What did he do? Filtering. Is that the right one? Sorry, I was not prepared for that.
Yep.
It should have been the one, but it doesn't look the same.
The one from Patrick.
Measure
when in
slicer,
that task, Patrick. I didn't check this video.
All right. I'm gonna say no, just because I can't get it up, and I'd have to do a lot of research to get it. So maybe we'll save that for next week, Matthias. Ask the question again next week, and we'll get ready for it. So I was not prepared for that one, and it's gonna take too long to get that wired up.
You will have Patrick too, and so
yeah, Patrick will be here, so Patrick can just do it. So
yeah.
I pulled up the file that he had for the video, and what I saw in there was not what I saw in the video, so something's different there. So I don't have what I need to go back through it. So apologies for that, Matthias. We'll do it next week. All right, Martin. Using calculate with filter in a DAX measure versus direct table field and visual level filter. What is more efficient or accurate or best practice?
So from a DAX standpoint, it's actually the same. But you have to consider what happens if you want to apply the same filter on multiple visuals. So in that case, I would say that the filter on the filter in the dashboard in the report is usually easier to use because you don't have to propagate the same filter in different calculate statement. And even though potentially it's the same, there could be some difference, especially if you have other formulas using the measure. So again, in theory, the number is the same, but if you have the same filter applied to, let's say, 5 measures, it would be better to apply the filter on the visual rather than on the individual measure. In a simple report, it doesn't change much, but as soon as you have multiple other conditions involved, there could be some difference, especially if some measure iterates other measures or something like that. So, but potentially from a calculation engine perspective is the same. The thing is another. Usually you create a measure with calculate with a filter because that the semantic of the measure requires the filter. All right. If I create a measure called red sales, it's sales of the products that are red, and so it doesn't make sense that I have to enforce the filter in the visual. At the same time, I will not create too many measures with different names when I can obtain the same result just applying filters on individual visuals in a report. So as usually it depends. It depends always on, do you have to reuse these measures in multiple places, or these are measured just for one report? That's the real question.
Nice. All right. Excellent. Miguel, thank you for becoming a member. Much appreciated. All right, Win. Any advice on best practices for documenting a model? What to include, where to store the documentation, hidden sheet, separate document?
Yeah.
It's an interesting question.
Yeah. So my point of view about this is that there are 2 reasons why you might want to create documentation. One is you have to, right? Because it's in the requirement of the product that you are creating, and you know that nobody will ever use this documentation. In that case, just use any tool that produces something. The higher the number of pages, the better, and you are done. Now, if you want to use something if you want to use the documentation for the second problem, which is I usually forget what I did yesterday or 1 week ago or 1 month ago. It depends. I mean, everyone has a different latency for forgetting things. My personal one is around hours. But so if you have that problem, then you have to write somewhere what you're doing, what is the meaning of a measure. Otherwise, you will forget everything. So in that case, it could be just, if it is internal documentation, it could be comments within the code or the description that you have in the measure. My personal opinion is that any documentation that is not automatically synchronized with the model you're building is going to be outdated. And when it is outdated, it is useless. And I really don't believe that somebody will maintain the documentation over time of a large model. It never happened. I never seen any project where this really work. Usually you see that 80% of the measures are documented and 20% that have been modified later are not. And so the only way to obtain something that works, rely on the metadata that you have in the model and then produce the documentation starting from there. Now, I don't know if there are products that do that, but the basic problem is that you have to start introducing this information within the model. So you have only the description in the measures and I think in the columns and not much else, right? So unless you can use annotation, but there is no standard for that at the moment.
Yeah, the other thing I'd add there too is if you do it in an external document, so not only would it be hard to keep that maintained and you might forget, but then also, like say 6 months later, you've left the company and someone new picks it up. Do they even know where that document is?
Yeah.
Like, so what documented the document? So
what could be important is something different, which is not a technical documentation, but a business requirement documentation. So why do we have this model and what is supported, what is useful for? Because the first thing when I see a model, I on a daily basis I receive models I never seen. I have to optimize them. Problem is that when you optimize something, you have to make some trade-off. And if I don't have any idea about what the model should be, I have no idea about the kind of features that I can lose or the kind of trade-off I can make, because in order to make a report faster, I will slow down someone else, unless there is a clear error in the way you wrote DAX. But especially when you start modifying the data model is specific for a problem. And this is the very reason why you have the data, you import the data as is. 90% of the times you're doing it wrong. If you're not applying any transformation to the data you're importing, 90% of the times you would have some problem. Because you're not shaping the data based on the report. The data model for your model should be the data model to answer a business request in the report. And this is the data mart you have to create. So if you already have a data mart, somebody else created the star schema for you, that's fine, you're lucky. But all the other times that you import something and it's not exactly a star schema, the real issue is not that you don't have a star schema. The real issue is that you don't have the data shaped for the kind of the report that you want to do. And you have to do your homework.
Yes. So lots of comments in the chat about just echoing what you said, like documenting in the metadata. Tom was talking about how they were closing a big project, and one of the strategies they used, if they're using Azure DevOps, and so they did a thing where, you know, commenting like, hey, here's the actual DevOps ticket for changes or for the items that they have. So yes, that could be a good idea. Yeah, we borrow techniques we have from programming languages, right? We use the comments in programming languages for many years to do all the kind of stuff, good or bad. Or to explain why this algorithm even exists and why you went this way, and someone's going to touch it and break it, and yes. All right, excellent question. All right, Dave, any tips for best optimizing reports, data sets, workspaces, and apps on a macro level for an organization of 5 to 100 or 1,000 employees?
This is for you, Adam.
It depends.
I listen.
There are different approaches to doing this. So, and I think I remember when we had Melissa Coates on, she went through discussing this as well, just from a deployment strategy. You can do this based on, you know, teams that you have or organizational units. You could do it based on, you know, the problems that they're trying to solve. So it depends what your business needs are on that front. You should have a strategy for doing that. And it may be a mixture of those two. It may not be a one size fits all. And so a good example of this is, hey, if you've got an approach that you're taking for like your HR department, where maybe you have like an attrition report that's being mandated for certain things, maybe that specific problem statement is off on its own workspace, has its own app to accomplish those goals. The other thing to consider there too is you can only have one app per workspace. And so you have to keep that in mind too, because that needs to be considered in your deployment strategy as well. And so having a workspace for a group or a team may not satisfy the end output of app distribution for the consumers, because there may be a bunch of stuff in there that is solving different problems. And you don't necessarily, you maybe want to deploy that in different ways. So my general stance would be probably organize it from the problem that you're trying to answer, or the question that you're trying to answer, and go that direction first. And then maybe you have other items from a team perspective. So I don't know if you have other thoughts on that, Marco.
No, I was reading the comments, and there is an interesting comment from Thomas Iverson, which is, I think Thomas, it is scrolling so fast, but it was a comment about the fact that it's a self-service tool, right? Power BI is a self-service tool. And it's a good point, because since 80% of the questions we answer in these chats are not about self-service tool, guys. I mean, documentation is not self-service. Optimization of the measure is not self-service. Star schema is not self-service. So self-service BI is the selling point of Power BI, which is you sell the idea that everyone will be able to create their own reports. Reality is that a small number of people in the company create the models, a larger number of people create reports on top of these models, and a much broader audience consume the reports. That's the reality, right? Of course, the pitch is different. The pitch to sell the product is different, like many other products, but trying to sell that self-service user will have all these stuff to manage, while the definition of business user is something I don't like to. It's a long story, so let's answer the other question. I will come back on this later. So
I do like Matthew's comment. Governance and self-service go together like champagne and strawberries. They're perfect together. And I will say also, like working with a lot of large enterprise companies, you have different needs within that organization. Yes, there's self-service, and Power BI usage in that organization probably started as, some homegrown self-service needs. But as it grows, there are definitely enterprise non-self-service approaches that are applied there as well. So you're going to have a mix of both. And so then the question is, well, okay, what's your strategy? How are you handling that for those different use cases? So.
No, I agree. And just to close the discussion, what I cannot resist, but oftentimes I see the reaction saying, but Power BI is for business users, and business users seems not even understand simple math. And guys, I don't believe that, right? So if you are creating a financial report, you know algebra, right? At least, and not to mention other things. And if you don't know that, it means that you're a business user in the sense you are like the clerk that is looking at the KPI just to know how many pieces has to build tomorrow, or how many customer has to answer today, or something like that. Just personal metrics to understand how it's going, but they don't care about anything. But that is a simple report. So if we're talking about advanced business user that actually can consume the data that you are presenting, it's insulting to think that they know nothing and they cannot learn nothing. I mean, it's I'm really not aligned to that position. Sorry, guys, but it's different. So it's a good pitch, self-service, but the reality is different.
So algebra, you said algebra. That's where you do math with letters, right?
Yep.
Okay.
No, I mean, no, algebra is,
I'm just
yeah. Okay.
I'm just kidding. No. I kid.
Okay.
All right. Prasaram, can you please do more videos optimizing performance? Yes, we will continue to find opportunities there. Also, check out SQLBI's YouTube channel. They do all that kind of stuff and talk about how to optimize or what's the best way to go do things. So lots of great content. And I know Marco and Alberto will continue doing that type of content. And then we will also look for opportunities to do that. So, yeah.
We're working on a number of things for that. Don't worry.
Yes. All right. Dave, any tips? Oh, we already did that one.
No, this is the previous one.
Yeah, that was. Yes. All right. Can you explain how can we use index?
How can we use
I don't know that I
index or
maybe in index?
Yeah, probably is the keyword in index, which is like SQL, right?
Yeah.
So it's like, or I mean, I don't know if we want. I mean, but it's very simple. So basically, imagine you have to write condition that says city equal to New York or city equal to Los Angeles. So repeating cities all the times is long. So you say city in curly braces, New York, comma, Los Angeles. So you can provide a set of values and you can check whether a column or a measure is within, the value is within the list that you provide. Now, the list could be also the result of a table expression, but the common use of in is just a list of static values. And it's just an easier way to write an or condition between multiple identity conditions. So multiple equal to. That's it.
Yep. Yeah. So Alex put a example in the chat. Exactly. Yep.
Perfect.
And then,
thanks, Alex.
Paul given another example there as well. I've seen it used with like numbers of a integer column as well. So I was actually working on that recently with an RLS item for a customer where they were doing that.
Yep.
All right. Okay. So Got a couple more minutes here. Let's see. Ushwal, how do you show and hide visuals of card table images, text box dynamically in Power BI reports? So there's not a way to trigger that dynamically. Like the way I'm reading that is, how do we do that based on like a measure condition or something like that?
Yeah.
You can't add expressions for the hidden at, or the is it visible today?
Yep.
And so the only way to really accomplish that is through the use of like bookmarks, and then have that done through buttons or images or trigger those bookmarks. So, but there's not a way to do that dynamically per se.
Yeah.
Ideas.powerbi.com. All right. Akil, how do you apply RLS only on a dimension and prevent it from filtering the fact? So if RLS based on region, user from a particular region should see sales from all regions, but other region names as blank.
So there are two ways to accomplish this. The right one and the wrong one. Let me explain. The right one is that you use, we wrote an article. Hey, Alex, can you find the article that explains how to show the visual totals?
Yes.
For
that's exactly where I was going to.
The DAX, okay. And that is the right one because it's safe. I mean, it's the way you do not expose any data to the end user. Then there is the wrong way. The wrong way is the following. First, you remove the relationship.
Yep.
Then you apply the filter, the security filter on the table, as you do today. But then you write the measure that transfer the filter with some, treat as or something like that. This way, the fact table, the sales table, has everything. The problem is that has everything, including the ID of each customer or of each product. So the identity of what you want to hide, and you cannot remove it because otherwise you will not be able to propagate the filter. Now, what does it mean this? Because you say, but this column is hidden. Yes, it's hidden, but it's still accessible. If I can write a report, I can see that data. And so I can use DAX Studio, I can use also Power BI, I can see, if I know the name of that column, I can write a DAX expression that exposes that name, and I can infer from the ID of the customer, probably I can understand the data of the information that you are trying to hide. So security by hiding information is never security, remember.
Yep.
So,
but and the other challenge with that too is in a lot of fact tables that I've seen, they actually include not just the ID, but they have string values in there too that could then be visible as well, that even further allow you to identify what's going on. So, so what Marco was saying also, so the idea of the visual level totals. So this was the concept of adding like a summary table that you can use that isn't gated by RLS. And then the actual detail table is gated by RLS. And so you can expose that information at a high level without exposing the details. So
yeah, it requires some work, but it's safe.
Yes.
And if you need security, if you really need security, that is a secure way to obtain a result.
Yep. All right. We are at the bottom of the hour, so we are going to kick over to member-only chat. So members, the queue has been cleared. Get your member questions in. And everyone in the chat, or so everyone watching the stream, thank you so much for watching. You can still watch, but only members and moderators are able to participate in the chat. Super chats always take priority. So even if you're not a member, super chats will always get in. All right. And one of the benefits of being a member is we do have, for certain tiers, the ability to pre-submit questions. And we do have 2 today. So we're going to kick off with those first. The first one is from Mr. Thomas. All right.
Yes.
Whoa. Let me get rid of that also. There we go. Many to many. The many to many question can be 2 scenarios.
Yeah.
2 tables with duplicate keys in each table, a bridge table between 2 dimension tables with many to one relationship with each dimension. So have you seen both scenarios successfully implemented, or is this even reliable or buggy?
Okay, so can we see, I'm sharing the whiteboard, so I can draw here, I think. So we can explain what we're saying.
I don't see the
prepare-
whiteboard. So on your desktop, I see Power
because
BI desktop.
wait. Share. Okay, I didn't click the button.
Oh, there we
Can
go.
You see my whiteboard now?
There we go.
Okay, good.
All right.
So let's say that we have two tables, and so when we talk about many-to-many, let's say we have here, I don't know, okay, the accounts and customers, okay? So imagine you have bank accounts here, bank accounts and customers. So you can have a bank account shared with someone else, and an account can be owned by many people. So technically, it's a many-to-many relationship at a logical level. But the way you obtain that is creating a table in the middle that has the ID of the account here and the ID of the customer here. So technically, when you create this relationship, what you have is you have many here, many to one, and sorry, no, the opposite. I made a mistake. This is a one to many, and a many to one, right? Now, how do we use this? Well, usually you have in the fact table here, for example, you have the balance of the account, and you want to see the balance of a customer. So what do you do for a customer? You have to, so for a customer, Marco here, Marco, let's say that Marco has the account, so Marco is M and has the account 1 and 2. What you're saying is that you want to see the balance of the account number 1 that has a certain value and account number 2 that has a certain value. So the report has Marco, and here you see the number, and this number is the sum of these two numbers here, right? So this is what we obtain through this relationship. Now, this is not the many-to-many cardinality relationship that you have in Power BI. This is simply an application of physical one-to-many, many-to-one relationships, where usually you apply the bidirectional filter here. So you apply the bidirectional filter here, and because of the bidirectional filter, when you filter a customer, this filter this, this filter this, this filter this, right? So 1, 2, and 3. When you do that, this works, but we suggest to not enable this relationship here. Don't enable this relationship in the model. Try to enable this relationship in the measure, because as soon as you create other relationships with other tables, accounts, and customers, it starts to be very, very complex to understand the implication of what you're doing. But it works. I mean, it works. There are no bugs. There is another way to define many-to-many relationship, which is the following. Imagine you have the product and you have, I don't know, the category, right? As long as you say one product has one category, everything is fine. But guess what? Sometimes you have a product can have multiple categories, can be between multiple categories. Or a better example is you have the customers and you have the sports. And how many sports can you play? Oh, every customer can play many sports.
I don't play
now,
any
when you
sports.
have this, okay, but it's the couch, staying the couch and looking at the TV is classified as a sport. Yeah.
Oh, excellent. You know, all right, I classify then.
World Championship is about to go sport. So now, when you have this kind of situation, you might have something. Actually, no, this is not the right situation. Sorry, I was making the wrong example here. Sorry, I was confusing with something else. So the other example could be, let's say that we have sales and we have the budget. Now the budget is connected to the product, and the sales are connected to the product. So you have the granularity at the product level, but the budget is defined at the brand level, right? So what you could do at this point is something like one many, and sorry, the opposite. One many is this way. So you have for many products you have only one brand, and for one brand you have many budget. Okay, so if you have this situation, the problem is that but technically you need to create a bidirectional filter here. right? So you can do this with the one-to-many relationship, and it works. But Power BI has a faster way to design this, which is creating this. So if you created this many-to-many cardinality relationship, here you use the brand instead of the product key to create the connection between the product and the brand. And this green relationship can replace this structure. This is the many-to-many cardinality relationship that you have in Power BI. And it works. But when you do that, pay attention. What is the direction? Single. It's product to budget. You don't want to go the other way around. So usually you create a big mistake by keeping the default bidirectional filter and a many-to-many cardinality relationship. Now, is it any better than doing what I designed initially with the red one? So is this same logical structure created by using two relationships in a table in the middle with just the list of the unique brands better or worse than the green one? And reality is that it's actually better from a performance standpoint when you have more than, let's say, hundreds, a few hundreds, let's say 100, 200 brands. So if you have only 10 brands or 20 brands, the green one is is the same. I would not say it's faster, but it's the same. When you have 1,000 brands, I can guarantee that the structure with the red situation is faster. And I just seen the other day a model that has a lot of many-to-many cardinality relationship like this one. So the green one, I have seen a lot of this with tens of thousands or maybe also millions of unique values. And I didn't see the benchmark they created, but I know that there will be something very, very bad there. And also this one, the situation here, the relationship with the table in the middle, it is faster, but it's not amazingly faster, because at the end of the day, both this technique, which is a cardinality, this is a technique to establish a relationship between two tables that don't share the same cardinality, and this technique, which is a many-to-many relationship between two business entities. So these are always structures that generate non-additive measures. And when you have non-additive measures, you start not having an efficient way to reuse the cache of the system, and the cardinality of the dimension that is close to the fact table is what determines the performance. So if you have 2,000 accounts, it's fine. But when you have 5 million of accounts or 10 million of accounts in a real bank, you don't want to do this at query time, believe me. But sometimes people want to do that and it doesn't work well.
Yes. Now, so the other thing I've seen too, this is the downside of it, is they weren't necessarily trying to like augment the bridge table, but they were trying to compensate for a poorly designed model. And so they started introducing many-to-many, and it was like,
No. Again, can't you describe your business problem with one or more star schemas with shared dimensions? If the answer is no, guess what? There are books describing any kind of model. You can create a new book, say, oh, my model doesn't work, because it cannot be represented with this. But it's likely that you simply have another model and you have to transform the data. Now, when you want to, I don't have time, I have to make a shortcut, let's solve this problem in a different way, you are just getting a loan and you will pay a lot of interest later. That's fine. It's no problem. There are banks that live with that, but that's how it works.
Nice. That was a great answer, long answer to that question. That was no. That was a heavy question, so it had to be unpacked. So much appreciated on that. Also, there were a lot of comments around the whiteboard app and your pen, and lots of people were amazed by that. And I've seen you do that 1,000 times. Yeah.
Yep, it's a Surface. Actually, I have a Surface Studio, which is a totally amazing experience. But yeah, because it's so big, it's so fun. I like it. But also with the smaller Surface, it works.
Yeah. Yep. And then Wyatt, thank you for the super chat. Much appreciated. All right. We did have one other pre-submitted question from Tom. Where do you draw the line between minimizing the data you import and staging as much as possible? So we were talking about this a little bit before the stream, and Marco doesn't like this question.
No, it's an open question because it depends, right? When the answer is it depends, I don't like, because I like to provide an answer. I think that the talking about tabular, so let's talk about just the engine we have for Power BI and analysis services. Because we are importing data that is stored in memory, usually we try to keep outside of the model, outside of the memory, those details that are not used in aggregations, which keeps a problem open to what happens when we need to go at the detail level, right? Because you have a lot of aggregated data, but then you want to get the list of detailed transactions because there is something strange this day for this product, for this customer. I want to see the list of the invoices. And at that point, yeah, we have a problem. But so to me, the line is that if I don't need this information in a report with aggregation, with aggregated data, I try to keep it away because I should use another technology to retrieve that data. Now, it could be better if we have this technology integrated with Power BI. Yes, we suggested a few features that could be added to Direct Query to support that kind of scenario. An easy one is, I would like to do this. I would like to get a fact table and say, you know what? I want to import in memory these columns, but when the query hits these other columns, go to SQL.
Yep.
That is my dream, but unfortunately, it's not supported yet. I mean, you could do something similar, but it's a lot of work, and it doesn't make really sense. But for the team that has the engine, it's possible to support that, and so I hope that one day
I know
they will do that.
Phil Seamark's done some blogs around that too, talking about like horizontal ags, vertical ags, and like different techniques that your filtered ags. They work, but
I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, again, it's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. If I have to do that kind of work, it's easier today. It's easier to create a SQL query and publish paginated report and integrate it when we will have the visual, integrate it with Power BI. It's just easier.
Yes.
But even that day, it's still a lot of work because you have to create two different reports and integrate them together. I would like to say, no, look, I just want to create a simple matrix here, a table or a matrix, and I want to get these two. If I have these two columns, go to SQL. That's it.
Yep.
But I know that when I go to SQL, I'm applying so many filters, the query will be fast.
Hopefully.
So because if I get millions of rows from SQL, it will be slow.
Yes. So some other bits, Tom put in his question also an example of like 10 million widgets across different categories and colors. And to me though, like when we're talking about 10 million, I'm like, that's fairly small. And so you should just be able to import that. Yeah. Just import it.
To me, up to 10 million is, you don't even start a discussion about using direct query.
Right. Yes.
We need at least 100 million rows to just start a discussion. But usually we start to discuss at 1 billion rows. At 1 billion rows, we start a discussion about, okay, do you really need this kind of details in the fact table when you navigate the data? That's a question. And
yeah. All right. Excellent.
Oh, by the way, I have we're preparing a Contoso version for our future trainings that we will share. And we have a version with 1 billion rows.
Oh, yeah.
We created 1 billion of transactions for 10 years.
Yep.
Now, the company, the revenues of the company with that volume of transaction is close to the bigger companies we have in the NASDAQ. We have seen the revenues. We said, wow. Because we try to put numbers that make sense, right? Imagine Contoso that has hundreds of billions of dollars of revenues. I mean, Apple or Microsoft do that. So it's. I mean, how many companies have this problem? That's my question. If you have so many rows, let's talk about it.
Well, and I'm I work with some customers where like that's the
I know.
challenge, right? And how do we scale and how do we optimize both the data source layer plus the Power BI layer to be efficient in how it's returning data over that size of or that amount of details. So
No, yes, I know that. But again, the problem is also if you have to pay even a small amount of money for each row you import, at a certain point you say, you know what? Wait a minute. Because we think that everything is free. It is not.
no.
Importing data is expensive. Now people is blaming, oh, Bitcoin is expensive because it consumes resources. Your model too. When you import a lot of data and you hit the refresh every hour on Power BI, you're doing the same. So guess what?
So the way I equate that also is I tell folks, I'm like, look, you're going to pay the cost somewhere. Where do you want to pay it? Right. So either you can pay it at the data source layer, you can pay for it like on the gateway, you can pay for it in your model. Like it's going to happen somewhere, and then someone has to own that. So who's the right person to do that at? No,
yes, I agree.
So, all right. We've got a bunch of questions here. Let's go to Nick. Nick. In education, we have a fact table for student attendance. We have millions of rows and need to know the year grade they were in for each record. Is this best done in M, DAX, or a relationship?
In SQL.
Yes. Matthew, what's your...
I mean, if you have a fact table, the thing is simple. Unless you have your data in a CSV file and you're importing all these CSV files straight into Power BI, which is probably not the best practice, but if you have a relational database, you can easily do a minimal level of aggregation. I mean, if you have the student attendance, means that you have each individual student, he entered this time, now even just cleaning the data and removing the details that increase the size in Power BI, if you keep the data compressed well, or you can load billions of rows, don't worry, billions of rows. If you just keep the date, the course, the student, and the time in hours with the rounding, I mean, 1 hour, half an hour, so just those numbers, and you keep the number of unique values small for the column, you can load a lot of data, and you will be surprised how fast it is once you import the data. The real cost will be importing the data, because of course you have to read this data. But if you don't import the data, you have to move this data to SQL. Then you have to optimize SQL to do the same job. And believe me, SQL will never be faster than Vertipack. Yes. Even the column store index, it is not. And even though you can reach close the same performance on a single table without relationships, it doesn't scale.
Yep. All right, and then Matthew, thank you for getting that in there. I screw this up every time, but
yeah.
Data transformation as far upstream as possible, as far downstream as necessary. I always reverse it.
Absolutely.
All right, Michael. New composite models published in Workspace C, connecting to data sets in Workspace A and one in Workspace B. Some of the visuals have rendering errors for users, even with access to all three workspaces. My first question there is, what's the error?
Yeah, and so I can tell you, first of all, the composite models are not generally available now. They're still in preview,
They're still in preview,
and which means that there could be bugs, and there are bugs, but usually the kind of bugs we have seen are the two types. One is that there is some performance issue, and that could be optimized, let's say, because there are performance issues that sometimes are related to the fact that you cannot obtain good performance because of the design that you created, right? So that could be something that you have to solve in the design. But let's say that there is some problem that could be optimized by the engine. So this is one thing. The other thing is that I have seen people having problems with the timeout. So there are scenarios where, because you have different models connected together, the latency of the connection between these models start to create problems, which shouldn't happen, but probably it happens sometime. And if the problem is reproducible, you should open a ticket. I think you cannot open a ticket support because it is in preview, right?
No, you can.
That's a problem.
You can.
You can?
Yep.
Okay, so open up support ticket, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, because it's better.
Now, for preview items, the team will do its best effort, so they'll go through and try and figure it out because it's also feedback into the feature as well. So they'll do what they can. Yep. All right. So I'm gonna grab. I think I'm gonna grab Paul's question because it hit something internally with me with something I've been working on for someone else. So I liked it. So Paul said, I met with a company who developed a commercial product that uses API code to populate a single large wide table in a Power BI model for reporting with many use cases. How would you respond to this? So first off, Marco, I'll let you respond, but I need to get this off my chest. Please, please do not use a single wide large table in your model. Like star schema. Like this is so one thing I've seen also is especially from a Tableau to Power BI migration. So Tableau tends to prefer the single table in terms of how it works. And so I've seen where, you have a really large wide single table for Tableau, and then we try and stuff that into Power BI because that's what we were doing in Tableau. And the thing is if you're going to use Power BI, use Power BI in a way that's efficient for using Power BI. Don't try and stuff something else into what you're trying to do. And so where you're going to get more efficiency on the Power BI side is the star schema approach instead of the single table. The other thing is going to be around, okay, well, how many rows are in there as well? To give an example, one extreme that I saw was 800 columns on a table with millions of rows, and a lot of those columns were strings. And so, there's issues with that, right? And obviously the discussion around that is performance, both from a refresh perspective as well as just usability in your reports. So break it up.
So it's okay. If you have this problem, so I hope that you have to write a small number of rows, because otherwise you are in trouble for the reasons that Adam explained. But before that, you have another issue, which is the bandwidth that you're using. Because if you're writing, many columns that are always the same, I imagine that, okay, if you have to write 100 rows, nobody cares, do whatever you want. Yep. If you have to write 100 rows per second, you don't want to write the same value in all the columns all the times if it is repeated. So you need some form of normalization of the data, and so you have to use some code that relate to some other table, just saying. And so at the end of the day, it doesn't pay to use this structure. Yes, I know that some developer has a shorter way to obtain the result. The API is simpler to describe. I completely understand that and believe, I'm a developer too, so I understand that, but it's always moving the price, moving the cost of the implementation somewhere else, and actually moving in the worst part, which is a part where even though you optimize everything, if you have this problem, you are consuming bandwidth for nothing, and you will not be able to solve the problem later. So that's the reason. It depends, right? It depends, but if they are writing too many things that are the same information repeated in many columns,
Yep.
Power BI works well once it has the data, but the problem is transferring the data is not efficient.
Yep. Well, and also then you get into things about model size. So are we even able to compress efficiently? The DAX that you have to write, is it overcomplicated to account for the single table? So there's so many problems both downstream and upstream that it's a mess. So yeah, please don't do that.
No.
All right, let's go. So Mark, it's an interesting question. If you could direct manage a Power BI team for 6 months, what feature would you implement in the tool first?
The first one, detach the DAX formula window somewhere else. the very first one, simply, right? So move this window somewhere else. So talking about large, bigger, okay, no, talking about small things that could change the life, one could be having the default filter for a calculation item, which could be the default filter for any table or any column, right? So imagine that you open a model, and if you don't apply a filter on year, you filter the current year by default. So you never see the sum of all the years, you just see the current year unless you put in the model, in the report, the year, right? But you don't see the total at any time. Now, that feature applied to calculation groups would be extremely powerful, and it will open the ability to basically create models where with a calculation group you can intercept all the measures of the model, applying changes to the measure, which means that you basically, even though the user doesn't do anything, you can intercept the measures that are in the model, and this could open the scenario to tools that, for example, you can inject in a model some code in a very transparent way. Whereas now, if you create a calculation item, you never know if the user will use it, and you cannot rely on that. So that, imagine the classical example, currency conversion. You want to apply the currency conversion to all the measures that have that are displaying an amount in dollar, but you don't want to change these measures one by one. The calculation group is wonderful, but what if you forget to apply the calculation group? You see numbers that don't make any sense. So that's one of the problems, and the feature itself is not that big. In the engine is not that big. Probably they have to implement something in a Power BI client that they don't think is so important. I don't know, and then of course visual calculation in DAX is another one.
Yes,
that would be. But I mean, talking about that is a bigger feature. Okay, that is a bigger feature. Also because, and again, I disagree with the way some people in Microsoft think that they say if we do this feature, we should also create a UI in Power BI to manage to support this feature. Well, it depends on what you mean, but you just have to provide me an editor, not a wizard that try to hide this, because that's the point. If it has to be hidden, is not good. It is good if it doesn't have to be hidden. If it is simple enough to use, that is not something that you want to hide. And so from my point of view, it's better to implement the feature sooner than later, even though you have a complete UI, because the feature in this case would be useful, even though you don't have a wizard to do that. From my personal point of view, the quick measure is absolutely useless, for example, because it's not flexible at all. It doesn't work all the time. It requires a lot of work from the development team to implement a new quick measure. Every quick measure has a specific wizard, specific UI designed, customized for that use, which means that doesn't scale. If you want to create other 20 quick measures, you cannot. If you want to create quick measures for your company, you cannot. So to me, it would have been better to provide something less easy to use for the end user, the business user, but that data modeler could customize for the real users they have. It's not important that you have 5 or 6 or 7 options that you can choose between, because your user in your company will need another one that they don't provide you. But if you enable the data modeler in the company to do that for the company, that is much better and scales much more, which is what I see. What I see is that we see people who create complex models in Power BI or in analysis services, and they leverage many users in the company. Those users have the need for the advanced features, not the user that just consume reports. So that's, we have different perception probably, and my perception is different, but that's fine.
That's all right. Everyone's got opinions. That's good.
Yep.
Good. That's good. All right. So we did have other questions in the queue, but we are at time. So apologies that we didn't get to more questions. We will absolutely have Marco and Alberto back on. So this is not the last time. So we will have opportunities for more questions. And then also, please be sure to check out the stream over on SQLBI that'll be on Wednesday. I'm sure it'll be very informational and interesting.
Yeah.
So I'm looking forward to that.
For the people that, even though you cannot see the live, just look at the recording.
Yeah, it'll be recording.
Just after that on YouTube. Yeah.
Yep.
It will be interesting.
And I'm sure there will be a lot of discussion on Twitter as well.
I hope so.
All right. Anything else, Marco, you want to leave us with?
No, I think you already announced our upcoming chat. We are working on other things, but not something soon. So a few months before you see something, big news. But
all right.
Yeah,
looking forward to it.
We'll see.
All right, folks. Thank you so much for being with us, Marco. As always, thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
It was a pleasure.
Have a nice weekend.
We will see everyone out on the interwebs.